Humans saved an alien girl from the crashing wind wall. Her final nod was the softest victory. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to our main character. Ethan Cole tasted grit in the air before he saw the storm. A metallic hum rolled over the research outpost like a warning growl, low and endless, the kind that vibrated in the ribs more than the ears. The sky above the ridge flickered pale blue, stretched thin like a sheet of ice lit from behind. He knew that color. Everyone stationed on Zephyra 9 did. The wind wall was forming. A mile-high slab of horizontal wind. Dense, slicing, fast enough to shear steel plates if you were unlucky with the angle. Ethan tightened his jacket, breath misting in the cold air as he stepped onto the sand-packed walkway. Alarms hadn't sounded yet, which meant he still had seconds, maybe a minute. Sometimes the machines lagged. The storm never did. He started toward the supply shed, expecting another lonely day of maintenance. But something in the corner of his vision broke the steady rhythm of the landscape. A flicker of motion. Too small to be debris, too still to be a sensor drone. He squinted, raising a hand to shade the glare. Someone stood out on the flats. The silhouette was slight, almost fragile, tinted the same cool blue as the sky's reflection. Not human. Ethan felt his chest tighten. No alien should be out there, not this close to a wind wall. He stepped off the walkway before he could think better of it. Sand shifted under his boots, cold as crushed glass. The wind picked up, brushing past him in uneven bursts, the early breath of the storm. He moved faster. The figure didn't run, didn't even brace, just stood facing the oncoming shimmer in the sky, as if frozen by something deeper than fear. When Ethan got close enough to see her face, he felt the world narrow to a single point. Her skin was pale blue, faintly luminous. Her eyes bright gold, unfocused, flicking between the storm front and her own trembling hands. She looked young, lost, and utterly alone. "Hey," he called out, but the wind swallowed his voice. He tried again, louder, pushing forward until he was just a few feet away. "You can't be out here. It's coming in fast." She blinked at him as if waking. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The storm's hum sharpened, turning into a piercing whistle that made Ethan's ears ring. The sky behind her warped, the leading edge of the wind wall curling like a massive, translucent wave. He didn't have time to explain. He reached for her arm gently, not wanting to startle her, but urgently enough that she understood. Her skin was shockingly cold. She flinched, not from the touch, but from the realization that someone was trying to pull her back toward safety. For a heartbeat, she hesitated. Ethan saw it, the conflict, the confusion, the disbelief that a stranger would run toward danger for her sake. Then the first gust hit, strong enough to make both of them stagger. Sand whipped past their ankles in stinging spirals. Ethan tightened his grip just enough to keep her from slipping. "Come on," he said, breath tight. "I've got you." The wind wall roared louder, its edge now rising behind her like a wall of liquid air. And she finally moved. She let him pull her. Not out of strength. Out of trust that didn't yet make sense to either of them. The storm chased them across the flats, but Ethan didn't look back. He just held on, guiding her toward the dim outline of the outpost door ahead, hoping the seconds left were enough for both of them to survive. The door of the outpost slid shut behind them with a soft metallic thud, sealing out the rising hum of the wind wall. The sudden quiet felt unreal, like stepping from a roaring highway into a church hallway. Ethan kept one hand braced on the entry panel, steadying himself as the adrenaline thinned from his bloodstream. The cold sting on his face was the last trace of the storm outside. The girl beside him stood very still, as if her body had not yet caught up to the fact that she was safe. Her breath came in short, uncertain wisps. Ethan loosened his grip gently. "You are all right," he said, his voice low, controlled, hoping to anchor her back into the present. She blinked slowly, her golden eyes adjusting to the softer interior lights. She looked around the entry chamber, taking in the rust-red flooring, the thermal lamps, the humming air filters along the walls. Her expression flickered with something he could not read. Confusion, maybe, or disbelief. Her skin carried a faint shimmer, like frost forming under moonlight. Ethan shrugged off his jacket and draped it around her shoulders. It dwarfed her, hanging awkwardly, but she held it closed with both hands as if afraid it might slip away. The temperature drops fast after a wind wall warning, he explained. You were exposed out there for too long. She stared at him for a moment, as if weighing the meaning of his words, then nodded once, small and slow. Her voice, when it finally came, was barely louder than the hum of the vents. Why did you come for me? Ethan paused. He rubbed the side of his thumb across his palm, grounding himself. You needed help. She studied him with a calm intensity, almost analytic, like she was trying to understand a rule she had never been taught. That is not reason enough for most. Ethan exhaled, letting the warmth of the room settle into his lungs. He motioned toward the inner corridor. Come on. The med bay is this way. Let us get you checked out. She hesitated again before following, her steps light against the metal flooring. He kept his pace slow so she would not feel rushed. The hallway lights cast long, soft shadows that swayed with their movement. When they reached the med bay, he activated the diagnostic screen. The glow washed over them, pale and steady. You can sit, he said, pulling out the cushioned bench. She sat carefully, hands resting atop the jacket he had given her. Her gaze drifted to the equipment on the counter. Instruments she had never seen. Displays she did not recognize. Her voice softened even further. I did not know humans were stationed here. Just a few of us, Ethan replied. Maintenance team. Weather monitors. Nothing special. She looked at him again, her eyes narrowing slightly, as if she found that last part hard to believe. Ethan opened a first aid kit and pulled out a small thermal patch. This is just to warm your skin a little. It might tingle, but it is safe. She watched every move he made, but she did not pull back when he pressed the patch gently against her forearm. The temperature shifted beneath his fingers, her cold skin absorbing the warmth. Thank you, she whispered. The words were quiet, but they were steady. Ethan nodded once, mirroring the small gesture she had given him outside. The simplicity of it felt grounding. Real. The storm outside finally triggered the outpost alarm, a distant wail muffled by thick walls. She flinched at the sound and turned toward the sealed door. Ethan spoke calmly. It cannot reach us in here. She breathed out slowly, the tension easing from her shoulders. For the first time since he had found her, her expression softened, no longer guarded or frozen by fear. It was the beginning of something fragile and unspoken, a moment suspended between two worlds trying to understand each other for the first time. The medbay lights dimmed slightly as the outpost shifted into storm protocol, a soft vibration passing through the floor like a slow heartbeat. Sierra watched the ceiling panels adjust with a quiet fascination, her golden eyes reflecting pale bands of light. Ethan stood nearby, giving her space, letting her take in the room at her own pace. She still held his jacket around her shoulders, gripping it as if it anchored her to something steady. The temperature will stabilize soon, Ethan said, checking the wall monitor. The systems run a warm cycle during heavy wind activity. You should feel better in a few minutes. She nodded once, the movement careful, almost ceremonial. This place, she murmured, it feels foreign, but calm. Ethan smiled lightly. Most outposts are just loud metal boxes. This one is old, but dependable. She looked at him then, her expression shifting. Dependable, she repeated, tasting the word. You have used this word twice since we entered. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, feeling unexpectedly self-conscious. I guess it is something I rely on. People, places, things I can trust. The words seemed to linger between them, floating in the warm air. Sierra lowered her gaze to her hands, studying the faint glow beneath her skin. My people do not use that word, she said. Trust is negotiated, calculated, granted by rank or contract, not given freely. Ethan leaned against the counter, crossing his arms loosely. That sounds exhausting. She released a quiet breath, the corners of her lips softening in a way that was not quite a smile, but close. It is simply what is expected. The storm siren outside faded to a low drone, signaling the wall had begun to move past the ridge. The walls vibrated gently as the last wave of pressure rolled over the outpost. Sierra's gaze flicked toward the sealed door again. Ethan noticed the tension in her shoulders. "You are safe," he said calmly. "It cannot breach the structure." "I know," she replied softly, "but the sound that reminds me of something." She paused, searching for the right words. "The sound of a boundary I was taught never to cross." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "Yet you crossed it today." She hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the fabric of his jacket. "I had to," she whispered. "There was a signal. A call. I followed it, but I lost my way." Ethan straightened. "A call." She nodded. "A pressure shift. A pattern in the wind. It felt familiar. I thought it might be someone I knew. Someone important." Her voice softened to almost nothing. "But when I reached the flats, there was nothing." Ethan did not press. He could see the weight behind her eyes, the quiet strain of someone who had hoped for an answer and found only danger instead. He stepped to the wall panel and activated the internal sensors. A warm pulse of light scanned the room. Sierra watched the display flicker, the map of the outpost glowing faintly. "You should rest," Ethan said, motioning toward the reclining cot beside the diagnostic bench. "The warm cycle will help your circulation. I can stay nearby if you prefer." Her golden eyes lifted to his, steady and earnest. "You saved me," she said, voice gentle but clear. "If you stay, I will feel less lost." Ethan nodded once, mirroring her calm sincerity. The air between them settled, a soft quiet filling the room. Outside, the storm drifted farther down the valley, its voice fading into distance. Inside, for the first time since he found her on the flats, she allowed herself to breathe without fear. The warm cycle hummed through the med bay, turning the air soft and steady, like a quiet blanket wrapping the walls. Ethan adjusted the settings on the panel, watching the temperature climb by a few degrees. The gentle rise in warmth seemed to ease the tension in Sierra's shoulders. She rested on the reclining cot, sitting upright, her hands tucked beneath the jacket he had given her. The glow under her skin pulsed faintly, no longer sharp from cold. For a long moment, she simply listened to the outpost breathe. Fans turning, sensors ticking, storm shutters settling. "This place is very different from my settlement," she said quietly. "Everything hums. Everything thinks." Ethan smiled at the way she phrased it. "It is old equipment. It makes noise when it is working properly." She tilted her head, considering that. "So the noise is a good thing?" "Most of the time," he said, leaning against the counter again. "If it ever goes silent, that is when you worry." Her eyes softened with curiosity. "Humans use sound to feel safe?" Ethan shrugged. "Sometimes. Silence can make you feel alone." The words seemed to surprise her. She shifted slightly, studying him with a slow, thoughtful focus. "Alone," she repeated. "You were alone out there on the flats before you found me." Ethan nodded. "Just doing my rounds. It was supposed to be a simple inspection day." She hesitated. "If you had not looked my way, the storm would have reached me." Ethan looked down at his hands. "I saw someone who needed help. That was enough." Sierra lowered her gaze, fingers brushing the edge of the thermal patch still warming her forearm. "On my world," she said, "help is not given so freely. There are protocols, rules, costs." Ethan's brow furrowed. "For something like this?" She nodded slowly. "Every choice must be approved. Every action justified. Even compassion is documented." Ethan let out a quiet breath. "That must feel heavy." "It is all I have known," she replied, her voice soft. "But when the wind wall grew, and I realized I could not reach shelter in time, I did not think anyone would come." She paused, swallowing with care, as if the admission itself required steadiness. "I did not think anyone would choose me." Ethan pushed away from the counter, walking closer but stopping at a respectful distance. "I chose to help because you were in danger, not because of who you are or what you are." Her golden eyes lifted to him, bright against the dimming lights. "You speak as if that is simple." "It is," Ethan said gently. "At least for me." The storm's final echoes faded outside, replaced by the soft rumble of the outpost returning to normal operations. Sierra looked toward the faint vibration in the walls, then back to him. "You saved me," she said again, her voice steady this time, not questioning but acknowledging. Ethan nodded once, mirroring her earlier gesture. "Anyone would have tried." She shook her head, a slight movement but firm. "No, not anyone." Ethan did not argue. He understood the weight of her words. She pulled his jacket tighter around herself, not out of cold now, but out of comfort. The glow beneath her skin brightened slightly, as if responding to the warmth in the room. "Ethan," she said softly, "may I ask something without offending?" "You can ask me anything," he replied. She studied him, her voice quiet but sincere. "Why does helping a stranger matter to you so much?" Ethan considered his answer, letting the silence sit just long enough to feel real. "Because," he said finally, "if we stop caring about people we do not know, then we lose something important. Something human." Syrah absorbed the words, her expression shifting into a fragile calm. She did not speak again. She did not need to. The quiet between them was no longer empty, but shared. The warm cycle eventually settled into a gentle equilibrium, leaving the med bay wrapped in a quiet calm that felt almost unreal after the chaos of the storm. Ethan checked the diagnostics one last time to make sure Syrah's temperature had stabilized. The soft glow beneath her skin now pulsed evenly, no longer flickering from cold or strain. She watched him with a stillness that felt intentional, as if she was memorizing the way he moved. "Your world must be very different," she said at last. Her voice held no fear now, only a cautious curiosity. "You speak of trust and choice as if they are everyday things." Ethan leaned against the counter, arms resting loosely at his sides. "For us they are, or at least they should be." Syrah looked down at her hands. "On my world, every step is recorded. Every word is evaluated." She paused, then added, "Every bond is approved before it is allowed." Ethan tilted his head. "Allowed by whom?" "The Wind Council," she said, quietly. "They oversee all movement, all connections, all responsibilities. It has been that way for generations." Ethan tried to imagine it, and failed. "That sounds like a lot of weight for anyone to carry." She nodded slowly. "It is why many of us learn to hide our thoughts." Her gaze lifted, golden and steady. "You do not hide yours." "I am not very good at hiding things," Ethan admitted. "I think with my face." Syrah studied him for a heartbeat, and the faintest trace of warmth reached her expression, not a smile, but something close, something soft. The storm shutters outside gave a final metallic click as they reopened, letting in a muted glow through the narrow windows. Sand still drifted in the air beyond the glass, swirling in slow spirals. The worst had passed. Ethan glanced toward the door. "We can step out of the med bay if you want. Stretch your legs. The hall is warmer now." Syrah hesitated only a moment before rising from the cot, still holding the edges of his jacket around her. She followed him into the corridor, her steps light, almost soundless. The lights overhead shifted to a soft amber tone, signaling the storm's retreat. "Is it always like this?" she asked as they walked. "These storms." Ethan shrugged. "They roll in fast. They leave fast. They make you appreciate the quiet in between." Syrah touched the wall lightly, fingertips gliding across the metal surface. "Your outpost feels lived in. It remembers things." Ethan chuckled. "If it remembers, it is probably complaining." She blinked at him, puzzled for a moment, and he clarified quickly. "Humor. Sorry. Human humor." Her expression softened again, that same fragile, almost smile. "I think I understand." They reached the observation alcove where a small window looked out over the ridge. The sky beyond was streaked with pale blue lines where the wind wall had passed, like the trail of a giant brushstroke across the horizon. Syrah stepped closer to the glass, eyes widening slightly at the view. "I did not realize how close it came," she whispered. "You got caught in the open," Ethan said gently. "But you are safe now." She turned toward him, her expression turning thoughtful. "Ethan," she said quietly, "when you saw me on the flats, what did you think?" He considered the question honestly. "I thought you were scared. And alone. And I could. Not just walk away." She absorbed that slowly, as if the words themselves were unfamiliar. "On my world," she said, "being alone is considered a failure, a sign of weakness. But when you speak of it, it sounds different." Ethan met her eyes, steady and calm. "Being alone is not weakness. Staying alone when someone reaches out, that is the part that hurts." Syrah held his gaze for a long, quiet moment. Then she nodded once, small and sincere, the same gesture she had offered him earlier. It carried a new weight now. Something beginning. Something fragile. The quiet between them held for a moment longer before Ethan stepped away from the window and motioned gently down the corridor. "Come on," he said. "You should have something warm to drink. It will help after the cold." Syrah nodded, her movements slow and deliberate, as if she was still adjusting to the safety around her. She followed him through the narrow passage toward the small common room near the center of the outpost. The lights there glowed softer, touched by a warm amber tone that made the metal walls feel less harsh. Ethan activated the heat kettle, its quiet click blending with the whir of air vents. Steam began to rise in thin spirals. Sierra watched closely, golden eyes reflecting the glow. "Your machines make warmth," she murmured. "Ours do not." "What do you use?" Ethan asked. "Wind chambers," she answered. "The air currents regulate temperature. It is elegant, but not as gentle as this." Ethan poured the warm liquid into 2 metal cups. "Careful, it is hot." She accepted the cup with both hands, holding it close to her face. The warmth radiated into her skin, making the soft glow beneath the surface brighten. She inhaled the scent curiously. "It smells calming." "Chamomile," Ethan explained. "It helps when you are shaken up." She tasted it, her expression thoughtful. "We do not drink plants," she said, "but it is pleasant." Ethan sat across from her at the small metal table. The hum of the outpost wrapped around them again, steady and familiar. Sierra looked at him over the rim of the cup. "Ethan," she said quietly, "earlier, when you spoke of being alone, you made it sound like something that can be changed." "It can," he replied simply. "Being alone is not a permanent state." She considered this. "On my world, separating from a group is dangerous. It can lead to punishment. It is seen as resisting order." Ethan frowned slightly. "So you are not supposed to wander off?" "Not unless instructed," she said. "But today, I followed something I could not explain." Ethan leaned forward a little. "The signal you mentioned?" She nodded. "It felt familiar, like a call from someone I knew. Someone who once," she paused, searching for the right words, "who once meant something to me. But when I reached the flats, I realized I was wrong. There was no one." Ethan's voice softened. "You were not wrong to follow your instinct, even if it led you somewhere unexpected." She lifted her eyes. "You believe that?" "I do," he said. "Sometimes the thing you are supposed to find is not what you were looking for." Silence settled again, warm and weighty. Sierra took another sip of the drink, letting its heat spread through her. "You speak with certainty," she murmured. "It is new to me." "I just speak honestly," Ethan said. She held his gaze, and something quiet shifted in her expression. A softened tension, a hint of trust forming carefully, like a fragile thread being woven for the first time. A soft vibration trembled through the room as the outpost transitioned out of storm protocol. The lights brightened slightly. Sierra looked around, her posture relaxing. "Your shelter protects you," she said. "And you protect others." Ethan shrugged gently. "It is what we do out here. We look out for one another." She studied him, golden eyes steady. "Even across different worlds." He nodded once. "Especially then." She closed her hands around the warm cup, drawing the heat into her palms. The glow beneath her skin warmed with it, gentler now, calm. "Ethan," she said softly, "you are very different from what I was taught about humans." "Good different?" he asked with a small smile. She gave a tiny nod, soft and slow. "Unexpected different." The quiet that followed carried no fear, no uncertainty. Only the beginning of understanding. The warm light in the common room settled into a steady glow as the outpost fully exited storm protocol, leaving the air calm enough that Ethan almost forgot how violently the wind wall had shaken the valley only an hour earlier. Sierra sat with her hands wrapped around the metal cup, absorbing its fading warmth like it was something precious. Ethan watched her quietly for a moment, noting the way her golden eyes softened whenever she looked at simple things, like the steam rising or the amber lights overhead. "You are feeling better?" he asked. She nodded. The warmth helped, and the quiet. Her voice was steady now, without the tremble she had carried since he found her. "This place, that feels safe." Ethan smiled softly. "I am glad." But before he could say anything more, a faint chime echoed through the corridor. Not an alarm, but a signal, a soft, pulsing tone that vibrated through the metal floor. Sierra stiffened instantly. The glow beneath her skin dimmed, her fingers tightening around the cup. "What is that?" Ethan asked, already standing. "Long-range relay," she whispered. "A communication pulse." Ethan stepped toward the wall console and checked the outpost monitor. "Strange. It is not from my team. The frequency is not human." Sierra rose slowly, her expression tightening with something deeper than fear. Recognition. It is from the Wind Council, she said quietly. They are searching. Someone crossed a boundary. Ethan's jaw tensed. Looking for you? She did not answer in words. Her silence was answer enough. The pulse sounded again, slightly louder this time, the rhythm precise and cold. Ethan turned off the screen and faced her. They cannot come in without authorization. This outpost is locked under storm protocol. They do not need to enter, Cirrus said, her voice low. They only need to confirm my location. Ethan took a breath, steady and deliberate. Do you want them to find you? She hesitated. The glow beneath her skin pulsed once, faint and conflicted. If they find me, they will take me back. They will question why I left my sector, why I followed the signal, why I am here. Ethan stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. Will they hurt you? She shook her head quickly. No, not harm. But they will not understand. They will remove my choices. They will decide what I should feel, where I should go. Her hands trembled slightly around the jacket he had given her. Here, I felt something different. Freedom. It is small, but it is real. The relay pulse sounded for a third time, traveling through the walls like a cold breath. Ethan reached toward the control panel and lowered the internal lights, dimming the room until the only illumination came from Cirrus' faint glow and the soft night mode along the floor. What are you doing? She asked. Buying you time, Ethan replied. If you do not want to be found, I will not let a relay give you away. Cirrus looked at him with a quiet intensity, something shifting in her expression, fragile but strong. Ethan, she said softly, my people would not understand why you would risk anything for me. I do not need them to understand, he replied. I just need you to feel safe. The pulse finally faded into silence. And in that silence, she stood a little closer to him, her voice barely above a breath. With you? I do. The dimmed lights of the outpost wrapped the common room in a soft twilight glow, turning every surface into muted shades of copper and blue. Cirrus stood very still, listening for the relay pulse that had shaken her only moments before. When none came, the tension in her shoulders eased, slow and cautious, like a breath she had held for far too long. Ethan watched her in that silence, his posture steady, grounding. They will try again, she said quietly, her voice so soft it barely touched the air. The Wind Council never stops a search until a boundary is restored. Ethan moved to the console and adjusted the local interference field, raising it just enough to distort external scans without triggering a defensive alert. Then we keep you off their sensors, he said. You can stay here as long as you need. Cirrus stepped closer, the faint glow beneath her skin illuminating the front of his jacket. You do not understand what it means if they find me, she said. They will not bring harm, but they will take me back. They will bind my choices to the Council's order. I will not be able to leave again without permission. Ethan did not flinch. Do you want to go back? She hesitated, the silence between them stretching like a fragile thread. I want to understand myself, she whispered. For the first time, I want something that is not assigned to me. Her words hung there, vulnerable and honest. Ethan leaned against the edge of the table, giving her room while still being close enough to offer comfort. Then you should have the space to figure that out, he said. No council should decide that for you. Her golden eyes lifted to him, full of a quiet conflict. You speak of freedom as if it is simple, as if it can be held. He shook his head gently. It is not simple, but you are allowed to try. Another soft pulse shivered through the walls then, quieter than before, almost like the echo of a distant breath. Cirrus closed her eyes, recognizing the pattern. They are scanning the ridge, she murmured. They are narrowing their search. Ethan activated the internal shielding again, layering another wave of interference. Let them search, he said. They will not find you here. But the look she gave him was not one of fear. It was one of sorrow. Ethan, she said softly, my people do not abandon their own. If they believe I am in danger, they will escalate the search. They will send more signals. Stronger ones. She placed her hand gently on the table, her glow dimming with uncertainty. I do not want you harmed for helping me. Ethan's expression softened. I told you. I do not hide what I feel. And I do not regret helping you. She studied his face, reading the sincerity in it, the calm warmth that had guided every choice he made since he first reached for her on the storm flats. Your world is strange, she whispered. You choose people you do not know. You choose them without question. Ethan stepped closer, his movements slow and gentle. Sometimes that is how trust begins. Syrah breathed in, steadying herself. In my culture, trust is proven through hardship, through shared danger. Ethan gave a small nod. Then maybe that is what this moment is. The outpost lights flickered once, responding to another distant pulse from the council scanners. Syrah looked toward the window, then back at Ethan, her voice quieter than the hum of the air vents. If they find me, they will take me home. But if they do not, she let the sentence drift into silence, her meaning hanging delicately between them. Ethan did not break that silence. He held it with her, steady and patient, until she finally whispered the truth she had been afraid to speak. I am not ready to leave. And in that soft confession, something changed. Not loud, not sudden, just a shift. A beginning. The outpost settled into a hush so complete that even the air vents seemed to lower their voices, leaving only a soft vibration beneath the floor, like a heartbeat fading into calm. Syrah stood near the narrow window, her silhouette traced by the faint glow beneath her skin. Outside, the ridge stretched in pale layers of sand and stone, the scars of the wind wall still etched across the horizon. Ethan stepped beside her, not close enough to startle, but close enough that she would not feel alone. She exhaled slowly, her breath fogging the glass for a heartbeat before disappearing. They have stopped scanning, she whispered. For now. Ethan nodded. The interference is holding. They will think you kept moving with the storm. Syrah's golden eyes lifted to meet his, searching for something unspoken. Her voice softened. You gave me time to choose. No one has ever done that. Ethan leaned one shoulder against the wall, watching the shifting patterns of light on her skin. Whatever you decide, it should be your decision, not one forced on you. She looked down at her hands, fingers curling gently around the edge of his jacket, still wrapped around her. Ethan, if I return, they will question me. They will reshape my path. They will not allow me to cross a boundary again unless it serves a purpose. She paused, steadying her voice. But standing here, it feels like the first choice I have ever made for myself. Ethan felt something quiet settle in his chest. Not surprise. Not confusion. Something warmer. Something steady. You do not have to leave tonight, he said. You can rest. Think. The ridge is quiet. The storm is gone. She turned fully toward him now, her expression open in a way it had not been before. Ethan, earlier, when you pulled me away from the wind wall, I felt something I could not explain. I did not understand why you would run toward danger for someone you had never met. Her voice softened, almost a breath. Now I understand. You were not running toward danger. You were running toward me. Ethan held her gaze, letting the silence answer for him. She stepped a little closer, not out of fear, but out of certainty, the glow beneath her skin warming as she moved. In my culture, she said softly, a nod is a declaration. A vow. A promise of understanding. She lifted her chin slightly, searching his face. You offered me safety without condition. You offered me choice without judgment. You offered me humanity. She let the words settle between them, pure and clear. Then she lowered her head in a slow, gentle motion, one deliberate nod. Not dramatic, not grand, but full of meaning. This is my answer, she whispered. I choose to stay. At least, until I understand what this feeling is. Ethan felt his breath steady, warm against the cooled window pane. He nodded back, mirroring her gesture, simple and honest. Outside, the wind moved softly across the ridge. No storm, no warning, just a quiet whisper passing through open space. Syrah's glow brightened faintly, reflecting against the glass like a small constellation resting beside him. And in that silence, in that stillness, she offered him one final truth. Ethan, this is the softest victory I have ever known. The words lingered in the warm air between them, gentle and sure, carrying the weight of two worlds finally meeting in a single quiet moment.